Well, hello, everybody. Dr. Doug Sullivan here. So excited to be back with you for another live stream conference class. And this is a bit of a first for us as well. Our first ever live stream fall conference. So I thought I'd get into the theme a little bit. You know, we always seem to be doing these around the seasons, and we have the summer live stream and we have the winter live stream. Well, here in Wisconsin, fall means that the weather's getting a little chilly. Leaves are turning beautiful colors and, time to get out the flannel shirts. And I figured I'd pull out my favorite fall hat for you today, too, so we can just all be in theme. So, I don't know. What do you think? A little bit of Elmer Fudd to it? Yeah, we're going to roll with it. Okay, so I got to dig right in because I got a lot for you and I'm excited to get it rolling. Over the last year or so, I've spent a lot of time on these live stream classes digging into the foundational principles behind groups of our procedures. I'm going to go a little bit different direction today. Instead of digging into several procedures and how they tie together and how they, the foundation behind them, I'm going to go into one specific one today. Actually, two, but they tie together. And this particular procedure really is going to make a difference as to whether or not you have a blissful day that flows with lots of fun and you can serve lots of people, or you have absolute chaos going on in your office. So the title of my class today is Traffic Flow or Traffic Jam. It's completely up to you. So, seeing as how we're talking about traffic to start with, let's talk about road trips for just a minute. How many of you are road trip families? Yeah, you like to go on road trips, get everybody together and drive to wherever you're going? Man, it's the way our family's done vacations for lots and lots of years, because to be quite honest with you, it gives me heart palpitations to think about getting on airplanes with all my kids and being contained in a closed tube for that long. So we established the tradition of road trips and it's carried on. I mean, now many years later, 3 of my kids are adults at this point and still come back for the summer road trip. Gives us an opportunity to be together as a family, see the countryside, see towns and cities along the way. And yeah, to be honest with you, act a bit like the Griswolds. And, actually we did a road trip this summer that we associated with the elite meeting. We were down in Tennessee and drove across Tennessee, saw some countryside we've never seen before. As a matter of fact, along the way, I got to see the biggest Buc-ee's in the world. Who knew? In Tennessee. I didn't even know what a Buc-ee's was, much less that we were measuring the size of Buc-ee's. But let me tell you, if you've never seen a Buc-ee's, especially the biggest one in the world, you don't know what you're missing. But anyway, as much as I love road trips, the thing I hate the most about road trips is the inevitable traffic jam. You're always going to get into one. You know what I'm talking about, too. I'll bet you've been in one of these. Some of you may live in cities where it's a daily occurrence for you. You're flying down the road, you're going 65 miles an hour, and then, whoa, all of a sudden you're not moving. And then just like that, everybody around you is taking off again, and we're back up to 65 miles an hour, and then, whoa, back down to 0 again. I don't think there's almost anything in the world that makes me more nervous and anxious than that kind of stop and go traffic. I mean, I'm just waiting to slam into somebody or somebody to hit me. And I can't stand it looking out the windshield and just seeing that sea of brake lights, right? Everybody just all stopped in front of you, except for that one guy. You know that one guy, right? Weaving in and out of traffic, bumping people over into the breakdown lane, cutting people off. You know that guy. Yeah, those are the guys that can sour a road trip if you're not careful. And I'll tell you what, as much as we like to act like the Griswold family, I feel like Clark Griswold in the middle of those traffic jams going, and feel my blood pressure just going through the roof in those traffic jams. I can't stand them. So I got a little curious when I was putting together this class. I was wondering, where are some of the biggest traffic jams and congested highways in the country? And I came across this list from St. George's Insurance Brokerage. Apparently, they do this every year, and they list the most congested highways in the country. And, there's probably some that aren't surprises on here. There's Chicago, and there's Houston, and there's Atlanta, and there's LA. And where we were this summer, we were in Nashville going out towards eastern Tennessee. But you know what? Although Nashville was close, I'm actually thinking St. George's is wrong. My road trip this summer actually gave me a different experience. The worst, most congested highways in the country, based on my opinion, Knoxville, Tennessee. Love you guys in Knoxville. You got a pretty city, but oh, brother, does your traffic stink. That 65 to 0 to 65 again, right? Sea of brake lights. That one dude, which was actually many dudes in big old jacked up pickup trucks, weaving in and out of traffic, bumping people over into breakdown lanes. Yeah, that was all in Knoxville this summer, let me tell you. And no matter how excited I was about Buc-ee's, yeah, I was not excited about driving through Knoxville. So when I got home from that road trip, I got to wondering, what the heck's going on down there? Why is that so crazy? I mean, I sure didn't expect that kind of traffic. And by the way, I should say it wasn't just one experience. We were driving from Nashville through Knoxville out to eastern Tennessee on a Thursday. And yeah, we ran into a whole lot of traffic. Coming back through on Sunday morning at 9 a.m. Traffic, big time. I sat in Knoxville for like 2 hours. Why? Well, turns out there's actually a lot of reasons. Knoxville's going through some pretty massive population explosion over the last couple of decades. There's also two major interstates, the one we were on, which is east and west, and a north-south one that come in and they merge together. They don't actually cross. They sort of come in, join, go together for a while, and then split away again. And they're two of the busiest interstates in the southeast coming together right there. Turns out, according to a lot of the stuff I read online too, that there's some massive roadway design flaws. Instead of having the big flyover interchanges, the big spaghetti tangle of bridges, they basically just bring two roads together and say good luck. And so you can imagine when the roads are coming together like that and the traffic speed is really high, it creates a mess, right? Huge number of traffic accidents right there in that corridor we were driving through. Bottlenecks that show up for no reason, like I said, even on Sundays. Backlash from people who live in the city, but also people who have to drive through it all the time. Citizens and drivers alike. Man, oh man, social media was ugly for you guys in Knoxville. Knoxville sucks. Avoid Knoxville. I hate it here in Knoxville, driving around and all that other stuff. So yeah, it wasn't looking good because of all the traffic jams. But here's the deal. This is totally avoidable. I actually I really went down the rabbit hole on this. I read several traffic studies for in and around eastern Tennessee and Knoxville. And it turns out that if they just build the right interchanges, they could alleviate all of this traffic. They could have better proven structure. They could have better traffic control. They could have speed and volume regulation, and they could better understand their peaks and their valleys of their traffic. You notice I put all these words in yellow because I want you to pay attention. We're going to come back to them: structure and traffic control and volume regulation and peaks and valleys. So I have to wonder, as you're sitting here wondering what traffic jams have to do with anything, do these traffic jams happen in your office too? You end up with bottlenecks out of nowhere? Do you end up with crashes where all kinds of people show up at the same time in the same place and nobody can get anywhere? Feels like everybody's running into each other? You ever have aggravated drivers in your practice? Maybe it's the doctors, maybe it's the staff, maybe it's the patients. And how quickly does that build up into a Knoxville problem if it keeps happening for you, right? Patients start canceling and no-showing their visits. Patients drop out of care. They start putting bad Google reviews out there about you because it's so hard to navigate through your office. If you haven't already guessed, you guys, my topic of conversation today is about your schedule book. And yes, I put that in quotes because I understand I'm still talking from an old school perspective of a book on the counter that we write names in with a pencil. But whether you still do that or whether your book is entirely automated inside your software, it's still the schedule book, and it is the key to having either complete chaos and traffic jams and bottlenecks or blissful drives through your office with great controlled patient flow all day, every day. And believe it or not, even though this looks really complicated and crazy on your screen here, bliss can be had with this kind of infrastructure because it brings structure. It brings traffic control. It brings volume regulation, and it helps you regulate and understand your peaks and your valleys. At first, it can look intimidating, but when planned properly, it can help people move through your office just like traffic can move through and around a city so much easier. But to get here, your schedule book requires you to think about it differently. Scheduling appointments, and team, I'm going to start talking to you, but doctors, I know I usually say this to the team right away, but doctors, today I'm going to say this to you. Don't check out, doctors. This isn't just a team class. This is for you as well. But we got to think about our schedule book differently. It's not just scheduling a patient appointment. It's not just a task of getting someone into the book somewhere. It's a responsibility. We actually call this a core value. It's core value number 5 is responsibility. It requires your attention. It requires your control. And it requires discipline to stick to a proven strategy that we know works to flow patients. Now, here's the deal, you guys. As many of you have grown over the years, we've got to recognize that what worked when you were smaller doesn't work now. Kind of like Knoxville. Back in 1960, when those interstates I was talking about were first built coming into the city, Knoxville was a town of about 100,000. Well, now in 2022, they're just shy of 200,000. They've doubled in size. The roadways from the 1960s don't work anymore. I wonder how many of you have traffic flow patterns or structures in your schedule book that don't work anymore. See, you can't shove more volume into a schedule than you have space for, just like you can't shove more traffic onto roadways than you have lanes for. Now, we know that volume happens. We know that there are going to be times when the traffic is just heavy and the lanes are full and there's a slowdown, right? I mean, that's expected, especially in big cities. It's expected in bigger offices when we're at the peak of the day. But ain't nobody happy when traffic is bottlenecked all day long. Just like I wasn't happy when I was driving through Knoxville at 9 o'clock or 10 o'clock on a Sunday morning and we had bottlenecks. So we got to take the responsibility for better controlling that. We have to account for the anticipated traffic. What's going to be coming? What's it going to look like as we achieve our next set of goals, as our office grows? We've got to make space and control that space before it happens. Just like traffic control. There are really specific and proven strategies for regulating patient control, and that's where we're going to go today as we talk about the schedule book. Because you guys, we can't make this stuff up on the fly. Here's a hint. It won't work. It won't work. If this is what your schedule book looked like or what your roadway looked like back when you were a smaller city, and you now try to keep it that way but shove twice or 3 times or 4 times the traffic into it, it's not going to work. You must go to a more specific, patterned traffic plan. Now, not only do you have responsibility for controlling it, you've got to take leadership of your schedule book, everybody. This is also a core value. It's our core value number 1. Leadership is the primary method of controlling patient flow. We have to show people where to go. We have to show doctors where to go. We've got to work to keep people in the proper time slots at the proper time and assure that all of the procedures get done in the process. So we have to take responsibility and leadership with our schedule book. On a highway, you guys, cars go where the road goes, not just where they want to go, any old place. You have to lead people to where you want them to go, not necessarily where they want to go. Okay? So our schedule dictates where and when patients are doing and receiving certain procedures, as well as the time they're getting them. All right? I think a lot of us just think about timing, 9 o'clock, 9:30, 9:45, 10 o'clock. No, our schedule book also controls what's happening during those times. Now, doctors, I told you don't check out on me. I'm going to come back to you now. I'm going to say something that I think you might feel is very controversial, but your staff's going to love it. I know you might own the office, or you might have the authority of the patient care in the office that you're working in, but I want you to get a mindset, doctors, because this is really important. During patient care time, when you're in that office taking care of patients, staff doesn't work for you. Nope. You work for them. Notice I gave you a little smiley face at the end of that sentence, trying to soften that up because I know that hurts your ego a little bit. But you work for your staff. Your staff is controlling the flow, and you must go where they tell you to, where the schedule dictates that you go. We're going to talk about two specific strategies today for controlling your schedule book. One's called block booking and the other one's called cluster scheduling. Now, I want to get this in place right away as we go forward and talk about this, because it's going to talk a lot about time management and where people end up on a schedule. And I want to be sure we understand all the time that we're talking about today is based on the doctor's time with the patient, not the patient's time in the office. What I mean by that, as an example, if we've got a new patient that is scheduled for 9 a.m. today, that's the time the doctor is walking in the room with the patient, not the time the patient is walking in the door, right? If the patient's walking in the door at 9 a.m. as a new patient, you and I know the doctor's not seeing them at 9. And no matter how long it takes them to get the stuff done is what the time is the doctor's now going to be behind based on that schedule, right? So 9 a.m. means doctor's walking in the room with the patient. So now I ask you the question, team, if that's the time the doctor's seeing the patient, when does the patient actually need to arrive in your office to do their paperwork, to get their right place promise, to watch their welcome video, which is a little less than 5 minutes? It's definitely not 9 o'clock, is it? So tell the patient the time you need them there in order for them to be in with the doctor at the time your schedule book says they should be. I don't know, is that 8:45? Is it 8:40? And by the way, if you've got text reminders or phone calls that you make, those things should be calibrated to give that time the patient needs to arrive, right? Little things that we've got to think about that'll help control your traffic. Now let's dig into those two strategies, okay? Block booking based on the doctor's time. The definition of block booking is dedicating periods of time throughout the day in your schedule for performing only certain procedures. So let me give you an example using a one doctor office. Don't worry, if you've got multiple doctors in your office, we'll talk about those offices here in a few minutes, but just starting with one doctor. An example of block booking might be that all of our longer appointments we designate be done in a specific time of the day. Longer appointments are typically going to be our new patient appointment where we're doing a consultation and an examination and some x-rays. Our report of findings appointment where we're sitting down and giving the report of findings, having the financial conversation, doing the first adjustment. Those would be longer appointments that we would cluster together into one area or block together into one area of the calendar, of the schedule. We recommend that you do specific blocks throughout the day for only new patients and only reports of findings. We recommend that you do other blocks in the day for your shorter appointments. Your shorter appointments are typically going to be your adjustments, right? To be your wellness reports. Now notice, I'm talking about all of this being scheduled based on the doctor, which is why I'm not throwing in all the therapies and other things, because those can happen around the times that we schedule for the doctor, okay? Now, there's no one right or wrong way to structure block booking, right? You might be looking at the length of time of the blocks. You might be looking at where in the day to place them. You might be wondering how many of these blocks to have in a day. And although I'm going to give you several examples today, there's no one right or wrong way to do it. So certainly work with your coach to help you on this if you think you need some more strategy on it. But I do want to give you some guidance on how to start aiming down into the best probable places to block your schedule. It's going to be necessary to experiment. You're going to have to work with various blocks and times and lengths to see what serves you best. But the best way to start is just look back at historically over the last, say, 6 months, what your peaks and your valleys are. Okay. When are your historically busiest times? Maybe it's 4 to 6 in the afternoon, or maybe it's, 8 to 10 in the morning, or maybe it's, noon to 2 in the afternoon. Look and see where historically you're busiest. Those are going to be your peaks, and those are your most likely times to do your shorter visits, your adjusting and your wellness reports. In my office, we always call those blow and go times. We're blowing and going, blowing and going. Conversely, look back at what your valleys are. Historically, your slower times, where you could put longer visits that don't interrupt the day quite so much. Those would be your ideal first spots to aim for new patients and for reports of findings. Now, when you're doing that, you still also have to consider some early morning and some later day blocks for new patients, because I know what most of you are going to find is your valleys end up being like in the middle of the morning and in the middle of the afternoon, right? Like, 10 to 11 in the morning and maybe, 2 to 3 in the afternoon or something. But if that's the only place you ever put new patients, you're going to block out a certain number of your demographic that just can't do that. Right? They can't get to you during those times because of work constraints or something else in their life. So consider also, when you're thinking about where do you block new patients or reports of findings, that you do some earlier in the day and you do some later in the day. So let me give you some examples of what that might look like. Now, I know some of you might be looking at this on smaller screens, but what I've done here is I've blocked the week into 2 different structures, a Monday, Wednesday, Friday block and a Tuesday, Thursday block. And then I've taken those blocks and broke them down even more. Now, please, you can take pictures of this or save this or what have you, but this isn't like the integrity suggestion. This is just one example. I did this here with Monday, Wednesday, and Friday doing adjustments and therapies and wellness reports between 8 o'clock and 9 o'clock. Remember, these are doctor times. And then at 9 o'clock to 10:30, we flip over and we do new patients and we do reports of findings. And then we go back at 10:30 to noon and we do adjustments and therapies and wellness reports. And then we take some time off between noon and 1:30. And then we go back at 1:30 and do adjustments and therapies and wellness reports for an hour. And then at 2:30, we go to new patients and reports of findings until 4. And then we finish out the day 4 to 6 with adjustments and therapies and wellness reports. Now, you may notice that I went to the Tuesdays and Thursdays and I just completely flipped that. All right. So this gives us some early morning and some late evening new patients and reports of findings opportunities, whereas more in the middle of the day, 9 to 10:30, we do adjustments and therapies, and 2:30 to 4, we do adjustments and therapies. So this is just one example of how you could set up a 5-day work week to give opportunities to everybody for new patient and reports of findings, as well as adjustments and therapies. Now, here's some important tips about blocking. You schedule only the appropriate appointment types in the appropriate block. In other words, I'm going to say respect the block. Whoever staff member in your office is controlling that schedule, that's got to be your mantra, respect the block, okay? Adjustments and wellness reports only in that tightly spaced time frame for adjustments and wellness reports. No new patients, no reports of findings. Those go into their own block. And in the new patient and report of findings block, no adjustments, no wellness reports. Why is this important? Well, for your doctors, this creates what we call present time consciousness. It controls their speed. It controls their efficiency. Team, have you ever noticed that when your doctor gets on a roll, he or she can really get going, right? When it's just adjustment, 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 they can really get a groove on. But when you throw 2 adjustments and then a report of findings and then a break and then an adjustment and then a new patient and then 2 adjustments after that, they get scattered. They slow down. They're at their least efficient because they're always having to think about the thing that comes next, and they can't get into a single line of thinking. Present time consciousness. The other thing that happens when we know that we've just got a flow, one after the other, of patient adjustments, it prevents bottlenecking. It prevents time wasting. In that example I gave you a moment ago where you've got an adjustment, then a report of findings, then a gap, then 2 adjustments, then a new patient. That gap and another gap and another gap, they're too small to put anything into. And all of a sudden you add those gaps up and find out that you've got an hour's worth of gaps in a day that you couldn't do anything with. Okay? So this controls and structures the traffic moving through the office. Now, let me get into some tips and some tidbits here. If we're going to properly structure, let's say, the adjusting time or the new patient time or the report of findings time, we've got to know the doctor's timing with each appointment type. And we've got to be practical about placing people into those time frames. So I recommend, team, that you time your doctor. Yes, doctors, I said your team needs to time you. How long does it take you to do an adjustment? How long does it take you to do a consultation with a new patient or do your exam or do your report of findings? And doctors, once we know what your timing is, you got to stick to it. You got to stay on time, doctors. No chatting about the football team or the dogs at home or the patient's family. We rely on you to stay on time as your team builds your schedule around you. Now, before anybody gets all uptight here, I know everybody's different. I know techniques are different. I know treatments are different. And I want to remind you that we at Integrity don't tell you how to practice. We don't tell you exactly what you've got to be doing from the minute to the second or what have you, but we do know what's practical. And doctors, I am going to sit here today and tell you, you can adjust more than one patient in 15 minutes. You can. And I hear it from you doctors all the time. I got to spend more time with my patients to make the appointment more valuable. Are you sure? Are you sure? Because that's kind of like saying we need to leave the needle in this person's arm to make that medicine more valuable, more effective. Or do maybe we just need to stick that needle in there, inject that medicine and get it out? Now I know I'm ruffling lots of feathers right now with this, but it's a good example. Do the adjustment, doctors. Do the adjustment and get out of there. I got to ask you, doctor, how long does it take you to adjust your wife or your husband or your mom or your dad or your kids? I mean, really, how long does it take you to give a good adjustment to a loved one? Take that time, lay your 6-point office visit script over top of that. And that's pretty much the timing you need for the adjustment. Give yourself about 90 seconds more to complete your EHR note right after the adjustment. Yes, complete your EHR note right after the adjustment. And that is your timing. You know what we notice? We notice for most of you doctors that that's about 5 to 7 minutes for that adjustment. So team, while I'm not telling you that's an absolute, I'm telling you that's a target. That's where your doctors should be, between about 5 and 7 minutes. Report of findings? Listen, we know what the script takes. We do this all the time as coaches. We know that it takes about 9 minutes. So combine 9 minutes for the report of findings along with 5 to 7 minutes for a first adjustment. You got 15 minutes for a blocked time for a report of findings. Yep, pretty doable. Pretty doable. So here's what we've observed, everybody. We've observed on average that a doctor can do an adjustment, give or take about 5 minutes. We've observed that most of you will accomplish, remember, we're talking doctor time, that most of you doctors will spend about 30 minutes with your new patient between the consult and the exam and the x-rays. And we've noticed that you'll spend about 15 minutes with your patient between the report of findings and their first adjustment. So again, remember, this is the doctor's time. So when we're scheduling these times, this is the time the doctor should be going in with the patient. I gave you that example of a 9 a.m. new patient means doctor's walking in the room at 9 a.m. So let's play with some examples here, okay? And let's start looking at how the blocking looks in a practical way. If your doctor needs 30 minutes to see a new patient, then there is a maximum of 2 new patients that can be scheduled in a 1-hour block, right? 30 minutes and 30 minutes is 60 minutes. That's 1 hour. If your doctor needs 5 minutes to do an adjustment, then a maximum of 12 patients can be seen for adjustments in a 1-hour block of time. Team, don't overload a block. Right? If 12 is the maximum, don't put 20 in a 1-hour block unless you've discussed it as a team first. Sometimes we just need to put a few extra in there because that's just what we have available. But the practicality is 20 people scheduled in an hour at 5-minute adjustments adds up to 100 minutes. Please remember, there are 60 minutes in an hour. Oops. Your doctor's going to be behind. And if it was scheduled that way, team, that's your fault. Okay? And this is what your doctor does, right? It's the Griswold freakout. Have you seen this before? Yep, I'll bet you have. But, hang on, I have an exception. You should plan to overbook your schedule. And you just say, well, now wait a minute. If only 12 can go in at 5 minutes apiece to get to 60 minutes, now you're telling me to overbook it. Yeah, because every one of you have what we know is a cancellation rate. You have a certain number of people that cancel or no-show their appointments every day. Many of you know exactly what this number is. You've measured the percentage. So we recommend that you overbook your schedule by the average percentage that you're running right now. Now, obviously, I'd like you to get better and get that percentage down. That's another conversation. But if you're regularly running at 20% cancellation no-show, well, then we should put another 3 people per hour into the schedule, because at 12 visits an hour times 20%, that means about 3 people are going to fall off. All right? See how this works? Now we've got some strategy going here. And I need to say this because I don't know where this has come from, but we got to make sure you guys hear this. You're not a specialty clinic. You're not a specialty primary care clinic that only sees 2 or 3 people an hour. There's this kind of trend that we see going on called wave scheduling, where everybody gets scheduled in the first 15 minutes or first half hour of the whole hour, and then we just go as fast as we can and let everybody catch up. So some people wait 5 minutes and some people wait 30 minutes. You're not that kind of clinic, everybody. You're scheduling way more than 3 or 4 people an hour. That is the way to make people very mad. Now, not only do we need to remember doctor's timing, but we need to remember the appropriate blocks. Don't mix the block types unless you've discussed it as a team. As an example, 2 30-minute new patients and 4 5-minute adjustments. By the way, in an hour's time, that adds up to 80 minutes. Remember, 1 hour has 60 minutes in it. So if you put all that into an hour, your doctor cannot keep up. So we don't mix the blocks or we end up with this. Craziness from your doctor, right? Now, some of you out there right now might be saying, my patients won't do this. My patients won't do this. Here's the thing, you guys. They will do this if you lead them. They will do this if you lead them. When your patients call in for appointments or are standing at your desk, they are expecting a negotiation because it happens at restaurants. It happens when they're making reservations for airline flights or even calling in to make an oil change reservation. They know that most likely the time they want is not going to be available, but they're going to start with the time they want, and they expect you're going to narrow it down to a time that you have, right? So if a new patient calls at 5 p.m. for an appointment and you don't have that time open for 2 weeks, lead them where you want them to go. Sally, certainly we can look at that 5 p.m. time. I've got it out there a ways, but I don't want anyone to wait any longer than they need to. So I'd love to see what flexibility you have for tomorrow that we could make work. Very easy, team, but you've got to take the lead. Now, remember this schedule? I know it's very tiny, but remember this Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and Tuesday, Thursday blocking I just gave you? Well, look, if we take each of those adjustment times and put 3 adjustments into it every 15 minutes, so 3 from 8 to 8:15, 3 more from 8:15 to 8:30, and so on during all those blocked times, and we do the same things for new patients and reports of findings. 9 to 9:30 is 1 new patient. 9:30 to 10 o'clock is 1 new patient. 10 to 10:15 is 1 report of findings. 10:15 to 10:30 is 1 report of findings. If we go through and do that through that 5-day work week that I set up for you, that's 270 patient visits a week. That's 30 new patients a week. That's 30 reports of findings a week for 1 doctor. Yes, for 1 doctor. Wow. Now, everybody, when we're going through and setting up your blocked times, this isn't set on what you want, your most ideal hours. I know everybody wants to work from like 11 to 2, but nobody comes to you for that. So this isn't based on your ideal hours. It's based on the people you serve. It's not set up based on a guess. It's set up based on what you need to do to meet the goals of your 5-year plan. So when we're setting up our block booking, we have to ask the question, what does your 5-year plan say? Well, I pulled up a pretend 5-year plan here for us to look at. In the first year, this pretend plan calls for 40 new patients. Pretty practical. By the way, if we do the math on that, that's about 10 a week. And it calls for 720 patient visits a month. Again, very practical. That comes down to 170 patient visits per week. So you guys, I'm going to take it easy on you. Let's assume 2 adjustments every 15 minutes, not even 3. Let's assume the 30-minute new patient and 15-minute report of findings. I know you can't see all of this very well on your screen, but I plugged the numbers into that block that I created for you a little while ago on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. All right. And then I did the calculations on it. On Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, it comes out to 44 adjustments a day, 132 adjustments over 3 days. It comes out to 12 new patients over 3 days. It comes out to 6 report of findings over 3 days. You say, wait a minute, that's not enough report of findings. Yeah, but then there's Tuesday and Thursday. I plugged the same numbers in, and I got 4 reports of findings in a Thursday. By the way, I just did a Thursday afternoon, okay? I did 20 adjustments in a Thursday afternoon. I did 1 new patient and 2 reports of findings again at 5:30, and I did 4 adjustments from 6:30 to 7. So I even took your Thursday and I split it up. When I did those numbers and did Tuesday and Thursday half days, I came out with 48 adjustments for those 2 days. I came out with 3 new patients over the 2 days, and I came out with 10 report of findings for the 2 days. So I put it all together, and I've got 15 new patients a week. I've got 16 report of findings a week, so I got an extra in there, and I got 180 adjustments per week. Whoa. That's going to get us where we need to be. As a matter of fact, it's even more than what that 5-year plan was calling for. We made it easy on ourselves to recommend 3 times a week, which is the frequency most of you do. We gave ourselves early morning and late evening appointments. We gave ourselves a variety of appointments, and it came out over goal. So if you want, take Friday afternoon off. And we're still getting a $40,000 practice. We're still hitting our plan, and that's just in the first year. So what do we do next? Hire another doctor. Move on to year 2 of the 5-year plan goals. Block booking gave us the roadway and the lanes to get there. Now you say, what if I've got more than one doctor? Easy. We just start staggering the blocks. I pulled this from one of our coaches' office. This is 3 doctors. They start at 7 o'clock in the morning, and this one runs to about 2 o'clock. And what I want you to see is they staggered their reports of findings and their new patients, and they staggered their adjustment times. All right? Each of them got a lunch, but they were staggered, and that allowed the clinic to stay open all day. Yes, team, your lunches get staggered too. So no, the whole team doesn't eat together every day, but we get to see patients all day, and everybody still gets a break. Just in this time frame here, the first doctor had 63 adjustments and 1 new patient and 1 report of findings. And you can see the other numbers for the other doctors. In 7 hours of one day, I'm not even showing you the whole day, they had 171 adjustment opportunities, 5 new patient opportunities, 5 report of findings opportunities. And this goes on in the afternoon. 120 adjustment opportunities, 2 new patient opportunities, 2 report of findings opportunities. Look at the single day. One day, 290 adjustments, 7 new patients, 7 reports of findings. And by the way, I know this is small on your screen, but maybe you noticed, they actually took specific times throughout the day. And instead of doing 3 adjustments in a 15-minute period, they did 2 and scheduled 1 wellness report. Yep, they're making time for the wellness reports too. So from one coach's practice, and by the way, doctors, if you're starting to freak out going, oh my gosh, 5 days a week. No. No, we even staggered the doctors and the staff days off. Everybody worked about 40 hours a week in a 4-day week. Okay, so you can see there that every doctor got some time off. 2 of those doctors had full days off. 1 of those doctors elected to take 2 half days off. Huge numbers. Let me back that up here real quick. Hang on just a second. 1,180 adjustment opportunities, 25 new patients, 25 reports of findings per week. That's what happens when we start block booking and adding multiple doctors. Now, you might be saying, I need to do block booking, but I've been doing this for years and my schedule's going to be a mess. What do I do? Well, obviously, it's easiest to start with a blank canvas. I know that. But if there's already a schedule in place and you want to change it, here are the steps. First off, commit. Commit to it. Say, we're going to do this. Everybody's all in. It's going to be a little messy for a while, but keep the end vision in mind. Step 2, get your 5-year plan out and determine how many adjustments and new patients and reports of findings that you need. You can't hit the plan if you don't plan for the number it calls for. Get your coach's help here if you need some. Go back and look at your peaks, at your valleys. When are your highs? When are your lows? Those are obvious places that you may not want to stick a block of new patients into when you're at a peak of adjustments that is pretty consistent over 6 months. But also, consider the demographics that you serve. Where do you live? What's your community like? I took some examples from some of our clients. Are you in a bedroom community where your entire population leaves for the whole day? Yeah, you might not have any adjustments from like 10 in the morning until 4 at night, right? Because everybody leaves for the day. What about downtown? We've got some clients that work downtown in high rises. Most people are in there by 6:30, 7 o'clock in the morning, and downtown's empty by 5 o'clock at night. So why have hours until 7 if nobody's there? Are you in a rural farm community? Many of you are. Your availability of your patients might vary by season. You know, like right now, there are a lot of farmers that are out in the fields doing harvest. Yeah, you're not going to get them in for adjustments at all during the middle of the day during harvest. So you got to consider who you're serving. Factory towns. What about shift changes? Those are things you need to take into account. Once you've got an idea, create a template. What would you like your block booking to look like? You might even draw up 2 or 3 different versions. Remember, don't create a block schedule that's great for you. Create it for your patients, right? I realize everybody like to come into the office at 11 in the morning and go home at 3 in the afternoon. It's not going to work for 99% of your patients. So create the block that works for your patients. And here's the messy part. This is where you got to lay your block booking template over your current schedule. And you got to start working with that block booking. All new patients that call into your office, all reports of findings go only into the blocks that you've created from now on. And you advance multiple schedule them only in the adjusting blocks. Now, I know there are other people that are inside of those blocks too that were already there. I get it. Let them stay there. Let them finish their current advanced multiple scheduled plan, even if it's not in the right block. You already promised them that time. Don't go disrupt them. We don't need to make it hard for them to get to you. Let them finish. When they hit their wellness report 3, move them to wellness and advanced multiple schedule them into an adjusting block going forward. Wellness patients that you've got currently AMS'd but maybe are overlaying some of your blocks that you need them to move out of, well, as you get to them, you can move them going forward. Just tell them we've had a change in hours and time availability. It'll take you about 4 weeks to see all of those people mostly, and you can just change them one by one. Expect a few traffic jams. Know that you're going to have some people that run into each other and a few bottlenecks. It's just like road construction. It's okay. Be patient, be nice, but be a leader. Lead them to where you want them to go. And then meet together as a team each week to assess your progress. How you doing? How's it going? Where might the blocks not be working quite right? Sort out the bottlenecks and the confusion. Don't be afraid to change a block if you discover it's not working quite right. And your coach, of course, can help you on this entire strategy. Now, I know I'm already running a bit long here, but bear with me. Let's take 5 minutes real quick and talk about cluster scheduling. This is such a simple concept. It's, as the name says, cluster your visits close together. It keeps your office flowing rather than starting and stopping, right? You got 2 people, and then you got a break of 15 minutes, then you got a person, and then you got a break of 10 minutes, and you got another person. Your doctor doesn't work very efficiently that way, team, and neither do you. Keeps your doctor steady, keeps you steady. And by the way, keeps your doctor from developing bad habits like talking too much. And it also allows us to take open spaces in the schedule and consolidate them so we might fit in a last-minute emergency or a reactivation or something like that. Let me show you what this looks like. Here's a 1-hour time block. We start scheduling people from the top of the hour down each side of the clock. So for instance, we will schedule people for adjustments at 10 and 10:55, and then at 10:05 and 10:50, and then at 10:10 and 10:45, and at 10:15 and at 10:40, and at 10:20 and at 10:35. And you can see that what we're doing is as we're growing around the clock, there's this space that's getting ever smaller, but we maintain at the bottom of the hour that is open for those last-minute call-ins, maybe a fast new patient if we've got an emergency and the other blocks are already full, or something like that. And doctor, if nothing else calls in there, you can go to the bathroom. Team, your patients will do this if you lead them. Remember, they expect negotiation. They're going to come at you with a 10 o'clock, but if you don't have it, lead them to the 10:15 or the 10:50, right? Mrs. Smith says, I want an adjustment at 8:30, and you say, Mrs. Smith, I don't have that time available, but I do have an 8 or an 8:55. Just lead them to where you want them to go. And all of this, you guys, brings me to the end here. Block booking and cluster scheduling. It gives you structure. It controls your volume. It gives you lanes to flow people in. Don't be a Knoxville. Plan your traffic. Prevent your bottlenecks and your traffic jams. Because whether you have good traffic flow or a traffic jam, it's totally up to you. Thanks so much, everybody. I'm glad I got to be a part of your fall live conference today. I hope you have a great rest of the day.